Hello, everybody. It's your local idiot again. I thought I'd share a tiny little thought with you. Sorry about that. So I've had to take a little time to absorb and process this last election, which, like a lot of people, caught me by surprise. The result that is. But I'm not going to be storming the Capitol because I'm not a moron, and I'm actually an American, a real actual American. We don't do that. As all of my votes in the past, we do the peaceful transfer of power because we are an actual democracy. And like it or not, I've participated in every single election since I was legally allowed to. My first one was George Bush Sr. I voted for him. He said I knew nothing. I was an idiot kid. I was 18 or whatever. But he said that he was going to give the military a 10% raise, and I was in the military, so I was like, oh, I'll take that. And but then the very next presidential election, I helped vote him out, vote Clinton in. It was something that had to happen because of the national debt and some things like that. It ended up costing me, but it was for the better, and I knew that at the time. And even though I knew it was costing me later, I didn't realize it was going to cost me. But later, when it did cost me, I realized it was still for the better, and then I reelected him. But when George Bush Jr. came up, I had a little more knowledge about the world and what was going on, and so I did not vote for him. I voted for Al Gore, I think is what it was. And we lost that one. So I get it. Everybody I've ever voted for except for that one has won. But it's not the end of the world. I will say this presidency, I've never been worried about the country before as a result of an election before now. George Bush Jr. was actually, in some ways, a surprisingly good president. In some ways, he was also a surprisingly bad president in some other ways, and it wasn't because of him as much as that he basically handed over the reins to somebody who was extremely smart and well connected, very well connected. Dick Cheney was part of my command structure when I had been in the military many years before that. So that fellow knew his way around. Him and the other guy I can't think of at the moment. But so here's my basic concerns going forward, and I don't know, because they're concerns. There's probably nothing that we can do about them, and that's another concern of mine. But he said so many things, like that he's going to get rid of the Department of Education, which is just insane sounding. But it was insane sounding him being able to win a second term. So now I think all bets are off. Okay, I think it's entirely possible that anything that he said he was going to do is possible. Not because he's smart, but it's because he's got enough smart people around him that just happen to be evil, that it's possible that they could do the things, like Social Security might be going away. I don't know, count the how, it would be a heck of a task to try to count all the things, especially the bad things he said he was going to do. Deport millions of people, mass deportation. And that's like, okay, fine, deporting people that have recently arrived the illegal way, like sneaking over the border, but then once they get here, they claim asylum, that is a legal way to immigrate. It is legal. But he's talking about mass deportation of those folks. Now, wait a minute. What about just immigrants? What about people that applied for it and, went through the whole process, but they happen to be brown? Well, because he's a big-time racist, and I know that. And he always has been. Are those folks going to get deported at some point? Just because you immigrated. I mean, really, it shouldn't be like that, because all of his wives have always been immigrants. All of his kids are pretty much anchor babies, I think. So how does all that work? I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, there's a lot of real big concerns. So I mean, I know he's not going to make another prohibition, like a drinking prohibition, because he would have never got elected to that, and there would be a revolution because of the dipshits that elected him. They couldn't handle, like a prohibition on alcohol. But like every little gain people have made over the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 decades, I'm actually concerned a little bit for women's right to vote. Believe it or not, the Civil Rights Act, I'm concerned about anything even remotely like that. I think that it's entirely possible that instead of ramping down mass incarceration for brown people, it will be quite the opposite. I'm concerned that it'll be that they'll move toward privatization of all prisons in America, and which means that if you're brown, you're a slave again. Yeah, you can't have slavery unless you're incarcerated. Man, there's all kinds of factories that could be opened up that way if you have free labor, or what do they pay them, 20 cents an hour or something like that? That's pretty much free. I don't know. I can't even begin to tell you how concerned I am about the country. This is a person that the things that I hold the dearest, and as far as being an American, is public service, the military, social workers, police, fire, those kinds of things. Trump despises those people, even though he claimed not to. He clearly does. I'm concerned that any of those are going to be under attack, like military service. I don't think he gives a flying crap about those people. I think the only benefit would be in the greed factor for him, which may be military, in the military industrial complex might benefit, which means that if they benefit, GIs benefit very often because they get better gear. It's hella expensive, but the GIs aren't paying for it. So one of the reasons that we're the best equipped military in the entire world is because of our really bad system of overpaying, corrupt kind of paying to the military contractors, that design us equipment. It's a double-edged sword. So on one hand, you've got this insane, stupid, inefficient way to do things. On the other hand, though, we've got they have a new aircraft out now that literally can become virtually invisible, not just to radar, but it's got a skin on it, which I've been, hearing about for many, many years in science fiction, where that there's little bitty cameras and LEDs, like all over it. And so whatever the cameras see on the other side is what it projects color-wise on the opposite side. So when you're looking at it, you're basically looking at whatever the cameras on the opposite side of the thing is seeing. So it's not perfect. It would be, it'd almost be like one of those, the Predator, looks like a water drop kind of a thing. But for aircraft and things like that, it's, that'd be hard to spot. That's a good thing for pilots, and then that goes down all the way down into uniforms and, for GIs and weapons systems and everything else. So So that's in my world anyway, that's a tiny little positive. But for virtually everything else, I'm really concerned. It's almost easier to name what there isn't going to be a problem with than what there is going to be a problem with. When we have to be concerned about Social Security, something that's been around since the 40s, and when we have to be concerned about that, everything's on the table after that. The Department of Education, like I said, as bad as our education system is, in that whoever is the ones that provide the textbooks and approves them and all that stuff, they're in charge of what kids know. And with our system, it's been terrible. Okay, I didn't find out until and this is actually pretty common. I didn't find out about the Tulsa massacre. The Tulsa massacre, this giant event. I never heard one whiff of a word of it until I was in my 50s. And I'm a pretty educated guy, and it doesn't seem like it, but when I was younger, I was a voracious reader, and would be now if it wasn't for the fact that I was in school and I'm reading nonstop text stuff about finance and all kinds of junk like that. But I was really, really interested in not fantasy or crime novels as much. I was interested in real stuff, and so I read constantly about real stuff. Never came across any of that stuff. I really got to fix my authors list, I guess. But kids are going to know less now than they knew before, or worse yet, they won't know less, they'll know wrong. They'll know somebody's made up story, kind of like what history is. It's an agreed upon pack of lies told by the victors. So anyway, this is not a whining session. This is because if I was going to whine about it, it would have been a day or two ago. Because somebody else posted that I really admire. She posted about how that she felt like she got kicked in the stomach. And I don't know about kicked in the stomach for me, because I've been kicked in the stomach a lot. I've tasted a lot of my own blood over time. And that's actually not that tough. Not for me, anyway. Whatever you do a lot, you get used to. And what to one person would sound crazy, to another person's just a Wednesday kind of a thing. And at one time, it was just kind of a Wednesday kind of a thing. It's been a long time since I kind of outgrew that stuff or whatever. But get kicked in the stomach ain't that bad compared to. I've never been a kind of person that's concerned about my future. I've tried to trade in my life many times for stupid things, much less important things. So I've just never been fearful. I've just never been a fearful person for my own safety, which is clearly one of the reasons I call myself your local idiot. But the one thing that I am concerned about is the future of my country. I was raised right in that way. I was raised by people that fought in the Cold War. My father was a submariner during the Cold War, which means every single time he reported for duty, he was putting his life on the line. And in the middle of his career, I shouldn't say in the middle, kind of in the latter part of his career, 199, might as well say 99 was the exact number, of his friends all died at the same time as a result of the Cold War. The sub that he was a crew member of was sunk by the Soviet Union. That's a combat. I mean, they still deny it. The American Navy, they still claim it's something else. Why, I don't know. Because to be honest, I think if it's as well known as it is, which it is well known amongst lots of people in the intelligence community, including the Navy, that we do a disservice to those sailors because they died for their country, and it's being made to look like they died as a result of an accident, and it was no accident. It was direct combat in a real cowardly way, but effective. I mean, if we'd have done it to somebody else, we wouldn't call it cowardly, we would call it effective. But either way, it was done. And so my father was a combat veteran of the Cold War for his 14 years in service. And why would anybody serve that long and not get their 20? It's because 99 of your friends just died all at once. And your family didn't want you to go back and continue doing that once they found out it was that easy to happen. And so my mom, Oedipus complex, I guess. My mom basically put her foot down and said it became really obvious, and she was the kind of person that could come unglued literally in front of your eyes if she needed to. And she put her foot down. Hell, she even threatened the Navy. She said she had seen some top secret documents, which she had, but her whole life, much later after my father died, we talked about it occasionally, and she said she never really understood any of the stuff that she was reading, so she didn't have anything to bargain with. But they didn't know that. She saw something that was in my father's possession while he was in the shower, and he was about to go hand deliver that to the chief of naval operations. So it was a big deal apparently at the time. And after all was said and done, she said, I'm going to tell the news what I saw. And they said, well, he doesn't have to go back on a submarine. I mean, he's been doing the same job for 12 years. Let's have him teach, maybe, or something. And they gave him duty station of choice. Anybody that knows anything about the Navy, if you're being given duty station of choice, it means, at least especially back then, it means they like you, they value you, they value their own skin, whatever, because that's a pretty big ask. And he chose to teach what his job was at Great Lakes. And so for the next 2 years, he taught at Great Lakes instead of being aboard a submarine. And he was a valuable submarine sailor. Actually, he had 12 years of experience. And but then after the 2 years of teaching, it remained sour, really sour for him. I mean, there were never-ending amounts of hearings and all this kind of stuff. And the parents and wives and stuff like that of the people that had died were a never-ending source of pain for him. And so he got out. So and then my grandfather on my mom's side, my mom's dad, he was a lifer in the Navy. And so in my entire surrounding, my entire universe was military, lifetime military, and lifetime Cold War. And when I turned 17, I joined military, and when I was in basic, they constantly drilled us on things that would be combat against the Warsaw Pact, which is the Soviet Union, and whoever else was going to be there on their side, which is pretty much nobody. But we were always singing cadences about killing Ivan, and on the post I was at, where there was murals everywhere about with referring to an Ivan. It was always a picture of the guy from like Rocky, whatever it was, that had the blonde hair, crew cut, big muscles and all this kind of stuff. And some GI would be burying a K-bar in his gut, kind of a thing, in hand-to-hand combat. And so I was steeped my entire life in the Cold War. And so my opinion, and then during my time in the military, I was not in a position. I had a very high security clearance because I was in a communications unit, and in my particular communications job in my communications unit, I had access to be able to listen to anything anybody was ever saying on a phone line, which included our command center, all those people and stuff. And technically, we had way more capability than that too. When we weren't in combat situations. So I had a very high clearance, and even then later, many years later when I got out, and then when I got out, and then many years later when I was going to get back in after 01, after 9/11, I got my little brother to redo my clearance so I would have access, because I was going to get back in, and I wanted to get that buttoned up before I started, before I started my real in processing again and stuff. And so it would even maybe give me opportunities that didn't exist at the time or whatever. So when he got me my clearance back, because that was his job in the military, but he was in the Air Force, but he could still get me my clearance, because his job at that time in the 90s was to clear, do the background checks and clear civilian contractors, which were big, in the Middle East. And so it just so happens that it was his job. I mean, he probably shouldn't have done it for his brother, but which I now that I remember, he did get a talking to about it, but it still went through anyway. So my clearance was, I had the clearance, and then I re-had the clearance. I had it for a long time between my active duty time and then I didn't go back in the military. I mean, a week before I was supposed to sign my contract to go, and I would have died anyway. I was going to be, because I was prior service, there was a big restriction back then. They didn't want any prior service people. And the only way you could be prior service to get in to the Army was to go into a Ranger battalion. And I was like 38 or something at the time. I would have died. I would have had to go through Ranger school the whole bit, because I'd been out for, since I'd been out for 10 years, something like that. And so I would have had to go back. I think I would have had to go back through basic even. But people going through Ranger school aren't 40, and I would have died. I would have tried it. I would have, my brain would have pushed me until my body couldn't make it work anymore. And so I don't know what would have happened, because it was a stipulation. If you were going to go back in, you had to be a Ranger or Special Forces or something. And I guess if I failed at the school, which I probably would have, they just put me out, with the new injuries that I just got from the school. But while I had my point of telling you that my clearance being like that is I got a lot of really interesting information from other people that were in intelligence units, where that they were responsible for helping to make and implement PSYOPs, psychological operations, on the enemy. And so even though I never heard of PSYOPs, any particular PSYOP in peacetime. But when PSYOPs are simple shit too, like pamphlets, propaganda. And so like when we were against Saddam and them and stuff, they made up some pamphlets and they dropped them on all their troops, and their troops basically all gave up. Not a ton. I mean, there was a lot of tankers and stuff like that gave us some good battles that were dangerous. The only thing we had over them was that they had 1974 tanks, and we had modern Abrams with everything and satellite. They were fucked. But we were dropping pamphlets on them, telling them, hey, we're not going to kill you. We'll take you in, we'll treat you humanely, we'll give you medical attention and food. And these ground troops by the thousands were basically throwing down their weapons, throwing up their hands, and saying, hell yeah, Saddam doesn't do that for us. And so that's a psyop. But there's also psyops that are a lot more sophisticated than dropping pamphlets on people, or even, like the radio station thing. That's a psyop too, in a way, where you're telling people all kinds of stuff on the radio, like a regular radio. That's a psyop. But there's the psyops that we do, like that. It's not even a military thing. It's the like CIA and KGB, that kind of crap, and where that they do it on each other and try to get people to flip, and also just try to change public opinion. And so the Soviet Union, they were really, really, really good at the peacetime psyop. They were so good at it, they almost invented it, They've been doing a psyop on us for at least 30 years, period. I mean, it was a well-defined thing. We did not see it. I mean, we didn't get plans from somebody or anything like that. We got lots of heads up from defectors, people saying that this, and it's all on video, even these interviews, that this is what's happening, this is what they're doing, da 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 da. But either people didn't take it seriously enough, or it was just put together too well for us to really dismantle it. And this is a psyop that was going on for, like I say, over 30 years until now. This, what we just saw, was the coup de grace. For those who don't know what a coup de grace is, like in a bullfight, the bullfighter is toying with this, massive killing machine, which they're not really a killing machine, but the bullfighter pisses that guy off with the horns enough, who is, as big as a train, and the bullfighter is not careful enough, he's going to get killed, and so that's the whole point. And the bullfighter has these swords and stuff like this, and he pokes at it, and he gets these different little spears, as if you watched a bullfight ever, in it and stuff. So the animal's injured and stuff, but not enough to not be able to fight. And then at the very end, the bullfighter takes a sword and kills the bull, and that's the coup de grace. Okay. So the coup de grace is the very last thing, the final master stroke, which creates the win. The coup de grace in our situation was to get Donald Trump in office long enough to enact really hardcore shit that's on the wish list of the Soviet Union. And I'm going to call them the Soviet Union, even though the Soviet Union fell a long, long time ago. It might as well have been the Soviet Union still, because of Putin. Putin was a hardcore Soviet KGB guy and stuff, and he's everything he's ever done has been attempting to bring the Soviet Union back to power. It's probably not going to ever be called the USSR again. It will be, what it is now, the Russian Empire, something along those lines. But all the Ukraine stuff, all the Georgia stuff, the Crimean Peninsula, Crimea, all the countries, Kyrgyzstan, any of those countries that at one time were Soviet, which there was a zillion there, he's going to take those back. Belarus, he's going to take all those back. And then he's going to take Poland, and then he's going to continue to move. Now, obviously NATO has something to say about that, and NATO without America is still very powerful. But if he can dismantle America and take us off the board, imagine a big game board like Risk. If he can take America off the board, that is a gigantic coup de grace. And so this psyop that's been going on for all this time has culminated until now. I still don't know. It's like a magician, a really good magician trick, which is not physically possible, but you watched it happen. So somehow it happened. You just don't know what the trick is. So, I mean, I think I know what the trick is with Trump get elected. I mean, we got outmaneuvered, you know. I mean, the fact that I think we were a little too confident. Just like in 2016, just too confident. Nobody thought Trump could do it. Nobody thought enough of us were dumb enough and angry enough to protest vote, you know. But we got, you know, all these dipshits that did their protest vote because of Israel. Idiots. Sorry, I have emotions about it. And I'm with you on that. You know, the Israel's treatment of Palestine, that kind of stuff. Totally with it. People with a simple mind. When I say simple mind, I mean borderline retarded, who don't understand our position in the world and how we were limited in what we could do for Palestine. And, you know, the whole, oh, but you're supplying weapons for, you know, what we were doing was something we had to do for other reasons besides Palestine. And like I say, it doesn't matter though. In the end, it's all a bunch, it's 3D chess. They were able to manipulate propaganda to make the people that supported Palestine so mad that they would do protest votes. They were able to then, on top of that, manipulate a lot of black men to say, hey, women are taking over. We know you're culturally, you know, because of religion, Christianity and Islam, that women aren't supposed to be in charge or whatever. So they went to this thing where you know, in the Bible it says one day everything wrong will be right and right will be wrong and all this stuff, and women are taking over, and in the Bible it's not supposed to be like that. So we had a whole bunch of misogyny going on, where that, you know, there's a ton of people, not just black men, but that's a big cultural thing. Hispanic men, they really succeeded, I think, in that way too, with Hispanic men. One of the things that really got Hispanic men that way was the abortion thing and the women taking over thing. And it was kind of like women were getting too many rights and they're supposed to be subservient to men, according to Christianity and stuff, and hardcore Christianity. But then with Hispanic men, it was like the border thing, which is, I still don't quite understand. I've got a bunch of friends, Hispanic friends, that I would die for. But I just still don't understand how they can be so vehemently against people that are immigrating, even illegally, you know, and it's for them, it's especially illegally. People from their own part of the world, their own original part of the world, who, you know, their, you know, folks or grandparents or great grandparents came here for some of the same reasons. And I mean, it's like when my people came over from England and Scotland in the 1600s on both my mom and dad's side. I don't think there was a big application process. I think there was, you came over, you landed in Ellis Island or wherever, and you got processed in. There was no, you know, the only way you got rejected is if you had tuberculosis, and they would somebody would write a big P on your back, literally, with a piece of chalk. And you didn't even know what was there really. And as you're walking along, they would put you over into a line that they sent you back. Otherwise, you were in. There was no process. There was no waiting. You know, when there was a famine in Ireland, there was no waiting for people, you know. They just came if they could afford a passage, you know. That was it. So people from south of our border, you know, Mexico all the way down to, you know, Argentina, I guess. So the people that are trying to get out of their country for whatever reason and come to a place with better prospects for their futures, they have to go through a giant process that takes forever, that all these people that are like, anti-immigration, they didn't have to go through. That's what's known as pulling up the ladder after you get on the lifeboat. Like, okay, now that I'm safe on the lifeboat, no, not you guys. You guys might swamp us. Yeah, I mean, it was possible that it could have swamped us if I got on, but that's okay. Now that I'm on, you guys, I'm pulling the ladder up. You can't come. So, again, people that don't understand what bravery is, people that don't understand what empathy is, people that don't understand what standing up for other people is. Yeah. Lost. People that are lost. So anyway, that's it. This what we're looking at now is the stuff that's been on Putin's wish list for a long, long time, and now he's getting all of it. I don't know how they're going to stop it. Like, Congress pretty much lost all that too, for the most part. And we're not only, we haven't lost everything that way, but we're on a trend where that we're going to be losing stuff. And I don't know how we're going to stop it. So I don't have a lot of faith in what's coming. So good luck to us all. All right. Have a great day, and try to be positive. See you, folks.